Hey, what's up? In this video, I'm going to share 23 things that helped me finally open my heart up after mostly 3 decades of it being closed. Now, as a man, this is a big deal. Women seem to want men to open their heart, right? And this was a journey for me. So I'm going to share these 23 things in hopes that you or a man you know in your life, your husband, perhaps your boyfriend, will consider, okay? Because I think the world could be better off with dudes with open hearts, all right?
I have loved you ever since I've known you, Joe. I couldn't help it.
Number one, I finally admitted to myself, quietly, that I was in pain. And this is important because if you don't admit you're in pain, you have nothing to learn and there's no growth, right? So that was the first thing. Number two, I admitted that to someone else. I said, I'm in pain to a therapist. Actually, I started, very first person was my friend Katie, and I couldn't hide from her. She was one of those bullshit detector people. So second person was my therapist, technically. And that was super vulnerable and uncomfortable for me. Number three, I acknowledged that I wanted to feel differently and that I wanted to let people in. As I started doing therapy, I was like, it felt really good when I was after a good cry or whatever with my therapist to feel seen. It was really vulnerable. It was like, oh my God, you're actually seeing who I am versus seeing this mask that I've portrayed to everybody in my life.
That's correct, Wendy. We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
Number four, I got help, right? Rewind back to that therapist comment. I said, I'm in pain to a therapist. I actually said, I need help. I raised my hand and I went into psychotherapy. I tried a number of therapists. I wanted to make sure it was a good fit. And I was ready to change and I was ready to receive feedback and I was ready to be coached and I was ready to do something different because I was in so much pain. The main pain being depression and anxiety. Number five, I went to therapy. I actually showed up and started participating. And for 3 years straight, off and on, weekly, sometimes every other week, during summers, once a month, I went to psychotherapy and started to radically change. Number six, I went to a group therapy experience in a therapeutic training called the Gestalt method. And for 3 years, I was in a group context. We would meet every other month or so and sit in a circle. And if it was your turn, you'd go in the middle and the therapist would work on you and help you open up in front of a group of people. Talk about vulnerable, talk about edgy, scary. And then I would practice, of course, on my student friends. Number seven, I joined a men's group and I stayed in it for 6 years straight. I knew that I needed more support than just therapy. I was like, okay, it seems like I've heard about these things called men's groups and men's work. I'm gonna go try it out. And it was epic and completely changed my male relationships. Number eight, I began to study myself like a beast.
Let's start here.
That means I just went to graduate school and I started to read books and I started journaling like I never had. I journaled in my 20s, but it was mostly like reporting out about my day or something. Oh, I went to Costa Rica, I did this, I did that, I'm dating this person. It wasn't like, I'm scared, I feel insecure, I feel ashamed. So I really just started to study myself and study other people in graduate school. Number nine, I got my master's degree in psychology because I wanted to understand myself and my fellow humans way better. And studying psychology was really cool because I put myself under the microscope every day I went to class. I was like, is this me? Is this me? And wow, how does this work with people? And how come I'm like this with that person and I'm totally fine with that person and I'm totally angry with this person? It was a lot for 3 straight years. Number 10, I got an additional 3-year certificate in Gestalt therapy. That's the group therapy experience I was talking about because I was so hungry to learn. I wanted to learn all the skills I could to change myself, become more myself, and to effectively help other people with themselves. Number 11, I journaled a lot. And like I said, journaled in my 20s, but it was just so-so. I was journaling at coffee shops, journaling in the morning with tea and coffee. I would just reflect a lot on, this is what I'm getting about people. This is what I'm getting about myself. journaling has this amazing power to help you integrate what you're learning. It's like taking notes on your life.
My name is...
Number 12, I started meditating more and more. I began meditating when I was about 29, when I first entered graduate school. And it was very confronting to just sit quietly with yourself and do nothing. Like, I'm sitting here. But I started learning from masters and people who were very trained in meditation because I wanted to do it properly and I wanted good guidance and I wanted to figure out if I was doing it wrong or not. And so I kept practicing. It was 20 minutes a day or so. And then within a year and a half, I did a 30-day meditation retreat where we meditated 9 hours a day. And then I did several of those meditation retreats over time, month-long meditation retreats. I didn't want to run away from my problems anymore. I didn't want to run away from my mind. I didn't want to run away from fear and anxiety. I just wanted to sit in the soup of it and understand myself way better. Number 13, I studied Buddhism and began to accept reality as it is. Buddhism has a really cool frame on life that the root of all suffering is us chasing pleasure and avoiding pain. That actually creates more suffering for us. So if we're running from our problems, we're actually creating more problems. And if we're trying to get to a happy place or get the dopamine hit or go to our phones, I'm creating more and more suffering for myself. So I just wanted to stop running and I wanted a view to step into in my life. And I got that from an amazing meditation teacher who taught me what he calls the Vajrayana view, or the sacred outlook in life, that life is inherently trustworthy no matter what's happening. And that allowed me to relax into a bigger structure and a bigger context for my life. It's really, really helpful. Number 14, I learned how to feel, and it started by admitting that I felt nothing or numb. Now, these are not necessarily in the right order, but when I first went to therapy for about 6 months, my therapist would say, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on over there? And I'd say, I don't know. I feel nothing. I feel numb. And eventually that turned into, I feel angry. I feel sad. I feel hurt. I feel scared. But learning the language of feelings, because I had shut those down as a boy, was super helpful on my journey. And to this day, feeling, I still can run away from my feelings. But then I'm like, oh, there I am again, running away. Let me just sit with this on my meditation cushion or with my wife or with other people and feel what's occurring inside. When we feel, it allows us to connect more deeply with other people, and it allows us to have an open heart when we do connection or when we do our service work in the world. So feelings are lubrication for a life well lived. Obviously, we don't want to get stuck in our feelings, which I've talked about outside of this video. Number 15, I did a lot of anger work, and I expressed my rage in safe and therapeutic ways. So in this Gestalt training I told you about, sometimes I would hit pillows, I would push on other guys, I would scream and yell. I was so jammed up emotionally that just moving the energy of anger and rage in a safe way, where I knew I wasn't going to fight someone or hurt someone, and I was going to try to do it in an embodied way, was very freeing for me. I don't recommend screaming and yelling at people in a non-therapeutic way, but if you can do it in a therapeutic style setting, a men's work retreat, for example, or with a really skilled therapist or coach, it can be so cathartic and feel really good. Now, eventually I stopped doing that because I started seeing diminishing returns, but it was a really good stage for me to finally express what had been trapped inside.
Let it go!
Number 16, I slowly grew a vocabulary to be able to communicate my inner experience to others. Now, this is really important in your relationships in your life. So saying, it's one thing to say, gosh, I feel sad when I'm on the meditation cushion. It's a whole other thing to look at you and say, man, I'm feeling really sad right now. Or I feel ashamed about this behavior of mine or this thing I did or didn't do. I feel ashamed about my money situation. To say that and look someone in the eyes is incredibly vulnerable. So a lot of people have a hard time with that, with shame, for example, or fear, especially men. So if you can really get to know yourself better and start to articulate what's going on in here with your partner, your wife, your husband, your closest people, it just takes everything deeper and you feel more connected to people. Now, obviously some people can't handle that because they haven't done the work. And so you say, I feel ashamed, and they're like, oh, they want to fix it and change you and get rid of it. And well, how can I help? And That's a very superficial, that's a person clearly who hasn't done any inner work on how to feel their experience. So we want to open up and share this with people who have, all right? Number 17, I learned to feel in front of others, making eye contact regularly while afraid and while crying. Okay, so we're taking another step there with the shame or the tears or the anger, is just to like say it, okay, to people. And it's really important to this day in my wife and I's marriage, where we can do this with each other. We can be crying or ashamed or sad or mad or something, and we can look at each other. It's really regulating actually for the human mammal to share feelings back and forth in a direct way. Because what happens is if we stuff our feelings and we turn away, the feelings come out anyway, sideways, as prickliness, irritation, resentment, just feeling off. So we want to get them out and just express them and then move on.
Oh, I am so mad, Ross. I don't think I've ever been this angry.
Number 18, I opened myself up to all kinds of feedback from friends, mentors, and teachers. I would say things like, hey, I can't see myself very clearly. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you think my biggest block is, what my biggest challenges are, and what you appreciate about me. So we would do this often in a men's circle. I've done this with my wife. I've done this with therapists and coaches over the years. Is like, hey, I want your feedback on how you experience me right now in this moment. To me, in general, how do you experience me in life? How do you think I do my life? Because, right, some of us are kind of whiners or complainers or victims. We point the finger a lot at other people.
But it's your fault!
And we're not that open to feedback. We think we're right. We think other people are wrong. And getting feedback about how you show up like that is painful. It's like, oh man, I didn't see that I was kind of blaming everybody, or that I'm stuck in my own self-worth mess and I'm blaming myself, because it's just unattractive to be around, right? So you want people to hold up the mirror and be like, yeah, you're really hard on yourself and it's not fun to be around. Or Jayson, what I love about you is this, and what I sometimes frustrates me is this other thing you do. It's like, whoa, hey, okay, because I want to show up as the best version of myself. So opening yourself up to feedback from trusted sources is huge. Number 19, instead of blaming and running away in my intimate relationship, I stayed and I faced my fears. Okay, I historically for 10 years in my 20s, I would just blame every woman I dated. It's them, they're not hot enough, they're too emotional, they're whatever. And that kept me protected and safe, so I didn't have to open up, right? So turning that whole thing around and saying, you know what, I'm not going to blame anybody, and I'm not going to run away anymore. I'm just going to stay, was huge. And my wife and I, early on, before we got married, I ran away a couple times, and I came back. Those were my last attempts at running away, and it was, there was some shame at the time about that, of course. But I came back, and I repaired that. Yeah, so watch any tendencies to run away. Most of us do that in some version. Number 20, I did a ton of childhood trauma work, and I continue to do that work today. Okay, we're never really, it seems to me, I've been doing this now for 20 years, personal development work, 22 years or so, really working on myself consciously and to be a better version, more whole, complete, likable version of myself, because I have to live with me every day. So over the years, I come in and out of therapy. When I come up against something hard externally, it usually brings up stuff internally. And then I go into therapy and be like, God, I got to deal with this part of myself. All right. So I strongly recommend doing coaching and therapy on stuff that's happened to you in the past, stuff you can't remember, stuff that's holding you back. Because likely there's something from your past holding you back from the life you want and the partnership you want. 21, I finally committed to one person and sealed all the exits. Okay, there's something powerful for me in my journey. When you do that, there's something that can happen with the heart that's like, okay, I'm not running anymore. I'm going to stay with my wife, Ellen, and I'm not going to run. I'm here, and I commit to you. I choose you 100%, all in. It's like, all right, now we can build a foundation together, and I can... I open and close, of course, in my marriage, and I want to stay as open as possible with my kids and with my wife. So that container of marriage and being a family really helps me and has helped others that I've trained stay open and reopen after they close. Very, very important. 22, I accepted that it's okay to close my heart sometimes. So right, you're going to close your heart. You're going to shut down. You're going to dissociate. You are going to run away at times. You're going to push people away. You're going to push yourself away. You're going to shame yourself. we do all kinds of stuff in relationship to our most important people, and your heart will close. You're going into self-protection. And I've done other videos on how to deal with hurt feelings, how to open back up again. You should go check those out. But it is important to acknowledge that, like, you can't keep your heart open all the time. I don't think it's possible. I don't know anyone that does that. This world is so intense, and our relationships can get intense, and we do want to protect ourselves. So that's okay. Just commit to reopening, all right? 23, I developed choice around when to open and when to close. So if I go into a hostile environment or whatever, I'm pretty guarded, okay? And I'm surveying the scene like, I don't know if I want to really be vulnerable here or transparent. In other settings, it's like, I can choose. I actually feel safer here. I feel more interested in opening up. You know what? These people seem trustworthy. I'm going to let my guard down, and I'm going to let people in because those are the most fulfilling relationships. So in summary, if you notice that you can close down, have a tendency to stay closed or self-protected, again, no problem. But I guarantee you, you're just not going to be that fulfilled in your life. And your relationships, your intimate partnership like a marriage, isn't going to be that fulfilling if you're doing this all the time, protecting yourself. It's just not.
I'm some kind of bubble boy.
So I really encourage you to get with yourself and commit to reopening, okay? You've been hurt like me. You're going to get hurt again probably in life. It's like, how do you get back to a place of open-heartedness where you can feel feelings, you allow people in behind your wall, you take down the wall, you're like, yeah, come on in, I want you to see me and know me. Because most of us want to be loved and accepted for who we are, but that's really hard for other people to do with you if you stay closed and behind your wall, right? I mean, we can love you and accept you for having a big wall up, but we don't ever get to really know you. And that's lonely. So you can have a lot of friends like I had and feel totally alone inside. So commit to reopening, all right? If you've been hurt, if you're in self-protection, the world, I think, needs your heart. Subscribe to my YouTube channel here and stay tuned for more videos. And thanks for watching.